Before this video starts, remember one important thing: this is a fictional X-plane 11 flight simulation created for entertainment and aviation learning purposes. It is not based on a real accident. Have you ever wondered what would happen if, just minutes before landing, a Boeing 737 cargo aircraft suddenly faced a life-threatening emergency? Imagine sitting inside the cockpit. Every warning light begins flashing. The engines roar differently. The pilots have only seconds to react. One wrong decision could destroy the airplane, but one correct decision could save everyone on board. Today, you are about to experience one of the most intense Boeing 737 cargo flight simulations ever created. Watch until the end because every second changes the story, and the final landing will keep you guessing until the last moment. The sun had just started rising over the airport as the Boeing 737 cargo aircraft stood quietly on the apron. Painted in its striking white and red colors, the airplane looked ready for another routine cargo mission. Ground crews were loading containers into the main cargo compartment while engineers completed their final inspections. Inside the cockpit, Captain David checked the flight management system one final time. Beside him, First Officer Alex reviewed the weather reports. "The forecast looks good," Alex said while looking at the navigation display. "Mostly clear skies," Captain David replied. "But I don't like the crosswind forecast near our destination." Alex smiled. "We've handled worse." The captain nodded. "That's true. But aviation always teaches us one lesson. Never underestimate the unexpected." Outside, the last cargo container was secured. Fuel trucks disconnected from the aircraft, and the ground marshal signaled that loading was complete. The aircraft was now carrying valuable commercial cargo scheduled for delivery within a few hours. Everything appeared perfectly normal. Or so everyone believed. The pilots completed their pre-flight checklist carefully. Battery on. External power disconnected. APU running normally. Flight controls checked. Hydraulic systems normal. Fuel quantity balanced. Navigation systems programmed. Weather radar operational. Every item received a green confirmation. The airport controller cleared the aircraft to start its engines. Engine number 1 stable. Engine number 2 stable. Both CFM engines settled into a smooth idle as the cockpit filled with the familiar sound every Boeing pilot knows. The aircraft slowly began taxiing toward the active runway. Airport traffic was unusually busy. Passenger aircraft crossed nearby taxiways while another cargo airplane waited for departure. Tower continued issuing instructions. K2 Cargo 271, continue taxi via Alpha. Hold short runway 27. Hold short runway 27, K2 Cargo 271. The captain carefully positioned the aircraft behind the hold short line. Another Boeing 777 thundered into the sky ahead of them. The wake turbulence slowly disappeared. Tower called again. K2 Cargo 271, line up and wait. The aircraft rolled onto the runway centerline. Now there was no turning back. The captain looked toward the far end of the runway. Everything looked perfect. Engine instruments normal. Oil pressure normal. Flight controls free. Takeoff configuration checked. The runway stretched far into the distance. Ready? Ready. Takeoff. The thrust levers moved forward. The engines roared with incredible power. The aircraft accelerated rapidly. 40 knots. 80 knots. Checked. 100 knots. V1. Rotate. Captain David gently pulled back on the control column. The nose lifted gracefully. Moments later the Boeing 737 climbed into the morning sky. Positive rate. Gear up. The landing gear folded smoothly into the fuselage. The city quickly became smaller beneath them. Everything looked peaceful. Clouds drifted quietly below. Autopilot engaged. The aircraft climbed toward its cruising altitude. For the next hour, the flight remained completely normal. The pilots discussed family, aviation stories, and future vacations. The cargo aircraft crossed mountains, rivers, and small towns. Air traffic control handed the flight from one sector to another without any problems. Fuel consumption remained exactly as planned. Engine temperatures stayed stable. Passengers weren't on board, but the responsibility felt just as important. Every kilogram of cargo represented someone's business, someone's delivery, someone's deadline. The crew never treated cargo flights as less important than passenger flights. Professionalism remained exactly the same. As the aircraft approached its destination, weather reports changed. The clear skies shown earlier had begun developing into scattered storm clouds. Nothing dangerous. At least not yet. Captain David requested the latest weather update. The controller responded. Winds increasing. Light rain reported. Visibility still acceptable. The captain frowned slightly. Looks like conditions are changing faster than expected. Alex adjusted the arrival briefing. If needed, we can always go around. Exactly, the captain answered. No landing is worth taking unnecessary risks. The aircraft continued descending. Rain began tapping lightly against the windshield. Small drops slowly turned into heavier rainfall. Wind buffeted the aircraft gently. The autopilot compensated smoothly. Everything still appeared under control. Suddenly, a loud warning sounded inside the cockpit. Beep. 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 Both pilots immediately looked toward the overhead panel. A caution light had illuminated. Neither pilot spoke for several seconds. Training immediately took over. The captain stabilized the aircraft while the first officer identified the warning. Outside, dark clouds surrounded the Boeing 737. Rain became heavier. Visibility slowly decreased. Air traffic control asked. K2 Cargo 271, confirm everything normal? Captain David took a deep breath before pressing the radio button. Stand by, tower. The captain released the radio button and immediately focused on keeping the aircraft stable as turbulence began shaking the Boeing 737. The first officer quickly scanned every display across the cockpit. I've got a hydraulic caution, Alex said. Captain David kept both hands firmly on the control column. Confirm which system. Alex reviewed the indications once again. Hydraulic system B pressure is dropping. The captain remained calm. Let's run the checklist. There was no panic inside the cockpit. Years of training had prepared both pilots for situations exactly like this. Outside, rain continued falling against the windshield while dark clouds surrounded the aircraft. The first officer opened the quick reference handbook. Hydraulic system B low pressure checklist. The captain nodded. Go ahead. One by one, they completed every required action. The hydraulic pumps were checked. Circuit breakers were verified. Flight controls were monitored carefully. For several moments the pressure stabilized. Then suddenly, another warning sounded. The master caution illuminated again. This time the aircraft rolled gently to the right. I've got it, Captain David said while correcting the bank angle. Alex looked concerned. Pressure is dropping even further. The captain immediately disconnected the autopilot. I'll fly manually. The aircraft responded normally, but the controls felt slightly heavier than before. Air traffic control called once again. K2 Cargo 271, radio check. K2 Cargo 271. We have a technical issue. We'd like to maintain present altitude while we evaluate. Roger, K2 Cargo 271. Maintain present altitude. Advise if you require priority. The cockpit became quiet again. Both pilots knew they had time, but not unlimited time. Captain David examined the weather radar. Several storm cells had formed directly along their planned approach. "We're not going through that," Alex agreed. "I'll request vectors around the weather." Within seconds, ATC cleared the aircraft onto a longer route. The Boeing slowly turned away from the strongest storms. For a brief moment, everything appeared to improve. The hydraulic pressure stopped decreasing. Both pilots exchanged hopeful looks. Maybe it was only a sensor. Captain David wasn't convinced. "Let's keep monitoring." 5 minutes later. The warning returned. This time louder. The control wheel vibrated slightly. The first officer immediately noticed another indication. "Captain, we've lost some spoiler function." Captain David stayed focused. As expected, with reduced hydraulic pressure, he slowly moved the control column left and right. The airplane is still responding. Alex contacted the company operations center to report the situation. Meanwhile, air traffic control offered several nearby airports. Captain David examined the navigation display. "Our destination is still the best option. It has the longest runway. And emergency services are already standing by." ATC immediately coordinated with airport firefighters. Rescue vehicles positioned themselves beside the runway. Medical teams prepared as a precaution. Inside the cockpit there was still no sign of panic. Only discipline. Only teamwork. The Boeing 737 began its descent. Rain had almost stopped. Clouds slowly opened. Visibility improved enough for the runway to become visible several miles ahead. "There it is," Alex said. Captain David looked outside. "I've got the runway." The first officer completed the landing checklist. Landing gear down. 3 green lights confirmed. Flaps selected carefully. Because of the hydraulic problem, they extended more slowly than usual. Flaps indicating. Landing checklist complete. The airplane continued descending steadily. Wind still pushed against the aircraft, causing small corrections. Captain David remained completely focused. At 1,000 feet above the ground, the runway lights became brighter. Fire trucks lined both sides of the runway. Tower cleared the aircraft to land immediately. "K2 Cargo 271, runway is yours. Wind calm enough for landing. Emergency crews standing by. Cleared to land." The captain gently adjusted the thrust. The aircraft crossed the runway threshold. 50 feet. 40. 30. 20. 10. The main landing gear touched the runway with a firm but controlled landing. Spoilers. Alex checked. Partial deployment. Reverse. Captain David pulled the reverse thrust levers. Both engines responded. The Boeing slowed rapidly. Without full hydraulic assistance, the braking distance became longer than normal. Captain David applied steady braking. The aircraft remained exactly on the runway centerline. 100 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots. Finally, the aircraft rolled safely to taxi speed. A deep silence filled the cockpit. Neither pilot spoke for several seconds. Then Alex smiled. "We made it." Captain David finally relaxed his grip on the control column. "We sure did." The tower controller congratulated the crew. "Excellent job, K2 Cargo 271. Emergency vehicles will escort you to the parking stand." The Boeing slowly taxied toward the apron surrounded by airport rescue vehicles. Ground engineers were already waiting. After shutting down both engines, the captain completed the final checklist. Beacon light off. Fuel pumps off. Electrical systems secured. Only then did both pilots remove their headsets. Outside, maintenance crews immediately began inspecting the hydraulic system. A damaged hydraulic line was eventually identified as the source of the warning. Because the crew had followed every checklist correctly, the aircraft remained fully controllable throughout the flight. The cargo was unloaded safely. No one was injured. The aircraft would return to service only after extensive repairs and inspections. Captain David looked once more at the Boeing parked quietly on the apron. "Every flight teaches us something." Alex nodded. "And every safe landing begins with preparation." Today's flight had not become memorable because of speed or perfect weather. It became memorable because professionalism, teamwork, and disciplined decision-making turned a potentially dangerous situation into a safe outcome. Thank you for watching this fictional X-Plane 11 flight simulation. If you enjoyed this aviation story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more realistic flight simulations. See you in the next flight.